a question and answer at the end, obviously, if the time allows. We have got an hours for today's session, and with everything relating to safeguarding, we do often talk about sensitive topics. Please do obviously look after yourself. So if there's anything that does come up and you feel it might be overwhelming or you just need to take a little break, please do feel free to do that. And obviously we'll be round at the end if you need to kind of ask for any support. So without further ado, I will just introduce to you Debbie Norton and Sarah Adams from Lincolnshire Secure Unit.
Hi everybody, my name's Debbie Norton from Lincolnshire Secure Unit. I'm one of the deputy managers here. Been here for 20 years this year, so quite a while, met quite a few young people along the way. Lincolnshire Secure Unit is a secure children's home. We have a maximum of 12 children that reside here, aged from 10 to 18. They are here mostly for youth justice reasons, remanded, sentenced, or we have one welfare bed as well, so children who are putting themselves at risk in the community. So we do offer a range of activities and we have education on site, so they don't leave the building. They are secure at all times. I'll hand you over to Sarah. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah Adams. I am the case manager here at Lincolnshire Secure Unit, and I have worked here for 29 years. And we're going to discuss today the trauma recovery model and bring it about how we use it within Lincolnshire Secure Unit. So we will talk about some examples as well to bring it into life rather than just going through the presentation. First slide, please. So to start with, the trauma-informed practice is an approach to health and care interventions that recognise the widespread impact of trauma and seeks to create safe, supportive environments for individuals who've experienced it. It is grounded in the understanding that trauma can affect a person's neurological, biological, psychological and social development. So that's the basis of what it is. And as we go through the presentation, we'll show you how we implement some of those things within our setting. The next slide, please. So the key principles, obviously safety is a real starting point for any child that comes to our unit. And we try and prioritise physical, psychological and emotional safety for both service users and for staff. So I think it's important as we go through that as well, that the whole approach to trauma-informed practice is making sure that your staff are looked after as well as the children. For the safety part, obviously, we've got lots of environmental ways of maintaining safety within the unit and with lots of risk assessments that go within it. So we do have children that come in and then will tell us that they do feel safe after quite a short period of time because they've felt uncontained externally. Trustworthiness, ensuring transparency in policies and procedures to build trust. Again, it's one of our key principles with children, building those relationships and making sure that the children begin to trust us. And a lot of our children who've experienced a lot of trauma have real issues with trust, and it takes a lot of time sometimes to get them to build that trust. But one of our things is not to give up as well. A choice, supporting shared decision making and empowering individuals to take control of their healing. So again, everything we do with the children. We try not to do anything to them. We try and include them in everything, their decisions about what can help them while they're here. So that choice, you can imagine a child that's their freedom's been taken away, so they feel like they've got no power or no control anyway. So giving them a choice and things does help build that. Collaboration, recognising the value of lived experience and working together to improve systems. Again, we give our children opportunities to share their experiences through external agencies. So we have some children on what we call our Leaders Unlock project, so they get a voice and they can change things externally to hear or help other children to prevent them coming into custody. Empowerment, giving individuals a strong voice in decision making at both personal and organisational levels. Again, we try and do this as much as we can, give children a voice within the management decisions that we do, when we rewrite policies, anything like that, we do that alongside the children. And again, that creates that empowerment for them. And cultural consideration, moving beyond the stereotypes and bias to provide inclusive and sensitive care. For those that don't know much about Lincolnshire Secure Unit, we get children from all over the country. They all come from diverse backgrounds. They all have different cultural backgrounds as well. And so it's really key to us to ensure that we treat everybody as an individual, and we also try not to put any barriers in the way. If there's a barrier in the way, we try and do our best to overcome it, so children feel that they are all included in what we're doing. Again, adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and I'm sure all of you that are listening might have some knowledge on this, but we just put it in there in case people are new to this trauma-informed practice. And the adverse childhood experiences are deeply linked to trauma, as they encompass a range of stressful or traumatic events that occur during childhood. And these experiences can include abuse, neglect, household dysfunction, and exposure to violence. And I would say that all of our children have experienced a number of ACEs before they come to us. And understanding the ACEs is crucial for that trauma-informed care, as it helps us as professionals create that supportive environment that fosters healing and resilience. So knowing and understanding that child's story and their journey and where they've come from. So a trauma-informed care ethos is the need to see beyond the child's presenting behaviour and ask, what does the child need, rather than what is wrong? So again, we've changed the narrative, that we do now see if a child is dysregulated in their emotions, whatever their behaviour they're displaying outwardly. The staff are very good now at thinking about why is that, what does the child need, rather than what's wrong with that child. And that, you know, we have lots of people trying to maybe ask for labels for children along the way, and a lot of the labels can be linked to trauma as opposed to any other label as well. So this is the trauma recovery model that people, I don't know if everybody's seen it or aware of it, and this is what we use throughout a child's stay with us. So it's part of our everyday planning, care, all of the things that we do. So all of our children that arrive to Lincolnshire, we'd be looking at the bottom part of this triangle. We help them by trying to embed the safety, the trust, the building of relationships, like we talked about on the first couple of slides. And we try and make sure that what we're doing matches where the child is currently on this trauma recovery model. As I say, I've worked here a long time, and we have professionals that come along and say, this child needs to be doing this work on risk-taking behaviour in the community. This child needs to do knife crime. And before we worked in this way, we would probably try and do that, but the child was not ready. So that work is not very meaningful. What we do now is be able to share this trauma recovery model and say, actually, we will not be doing that, because currently this child is still on the bottom of this triangle, and we need to regulate them. We need to make sure they feel safe and secure, and build those relationships with the staff before we do any meaningful work, because it's not about ticking boxes. It's about trying to change the outcomes of some of these children. And so having this model helps us explain to other professionals as well about why we're not doing that direct offence work at this given time, and what it is we need to be doing as a staff team to build them up to the next level. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through.
So what do we see when children first arrive at Lincolnshire Secure Unit? So as Sarah said, they usually come in at the bottom layer, and that's where they're trying to stabilise themselves, get to know who we are, how we work, what we expect of them. Some children come in and their first thought is they need to fight their way through it. They need to be on the defence. When they come into that cage and get out the van, some of the questions that we first ask is, are there lots of fights here? No, there isn't, because we care. We're not here to just fight fire. So what we do see at the beginning sometimes is the aggression and violence, verbal outbursts, self-harm. They struggle to engage in the routine. They'll stay in bed, not go to school for the first few weeks or few days of being here, refuse to go to bed at night, just fight back against the regime, really. Poor self-care, so hygiene may not always have been their strong point. And they come here, it can continue. We often find that they're quite chaotic. They're pushing back against our boundaries. They don't want to form those relationships with staff, and they don't trust us. There was a young lady that we worked with who, in the beginning, didn't want to be here, pushing against all of it. But we kind of knew by the time she was due to leave that she would be the opposite, and she wouldn't want to leave and would be struggling with that process. So we do move forward a lot. And we do that really by focusing on praise, positive reinforcement, explaining the routines, finding out about them. So what works for them in de-escalation, know what their triggers are. We're quite clear and simple in our instructions of what we expect. Spend time getting to know them. It is like they come in and they've got 6 parents in the morning and another 7 parents in the evening. So there's a lot of relationships they need to build and get to know and work out, and it does take a little while. So we do work on establishing those boundaries and the daily routines. So if they're not getting up for school in the morning, we keep going. We don't just accept that they're just going to sleep in all day. We keep pushing. We create that safe environment where they're clear on what we expect of them and what they need to be doing. We listen and we support and just try and give them an overall sense of safety. Within that, we sometimes have the other young people that support that process. So we have peer mentors who explain all of those routines and things in a way that they understand and is meaningful because they've been through it themselves. So that works as well for us to then be able to move on to layer 2. So there we do see a little bit of the testing of boundaries. They've started to build those relationships, but there are some that they can then become over dependent on. Still see some of the emotional outbursts. Still see some relationship difficulties with their peers. They live in a confined space. Not very many different rooms to go in. They have to go with who they're put with. Don't have a lot of choice over that. They probably wouldn't choose to be friends with them on the outside in the community. So there's a lot of things to think about. So they dip in and out of whether they trust us because they're still testing us out to see if we are trustworthy. They're seeking that attachment, and by doing that, they will reject us at times just to check in. Is that going to keep being there? Are we reliable? Are we predictable? Then we start to see their engagement increasing. They start to seek that validation, and that's when we see there's more engagement in the routine and the boundaries of the unit. So for that, we focus on being empathetic. We know that it's a difficult time to come here. They don't really understand the processes. We try and be consistent, be predictable in our routines so they know what's going to come next. Our evening is set out for 3 different structured activities, so they know what they're going to be doing each evening, building on what they are interested in. We validate their feelings, active listening, find out their own coping skills and build their confidence in their own abilities. Sometimes that might be the music that they have in their room, activities they have when they're in their room, because their room is quite a trigger point because they're on their own. From 9:30, the doors are locked and they're not open again till the morning, so that's when they've got their time with their own thoughts. So we do try and make that as supportive as possible. They do have their one-to-one time with their key workers. Again, getting to know them and build that relationship and show them what a healthy relationship looks like. Some of their past experiences might not have demonstrated that. They've probably been in numerous care homes. So how do they know that we're going to be any different? They need to test us and we need to pass the test that we are going to be different. Support them with their emotional regulation. Help them to help themselves with that as well. Give them some skills, reassurance that we're not here. They're not here to fight their way through it. We do actually care and we do actually want to support them to do the best they can do for themselves. All of those things we learn about the children, because each member of staff will learn something different, all has to be brought together in one place and communicated so we get the full picture of what they're about and what needs they have, what triggers they have and what we can do to help them. Like Sarah said, we involve them in the decision making, and that's just really around building that secure base for being able to move forward within the home. Next slide, please. So the third layer, usually our children are on the first and second, depending on how long they're here. We do move into the third and beyond for longer term children. Layer 3 is about putting all of we've learned from layer 1 and 2 into practice, being thoughtful, being trauma informed, and support the young people as they start to process and work through their trauma. So we don't do that alone. We have the psychology team, the health team, the case team, education, everybody plays a part in that. So at this stage, the children usually have showed some success in the home, experienced a period of stability and safety, and start to think about what's happened to them in the past. Although when we get to that point, it's important to note that that can also trigger more challenging behaviours. So we still need to be vigilant to make sure we support that process. Sometimes they reject staff as part of their emotional processing. And again, we understand why that is. We look for the need behind the behaviour and support them the best we can with the right people that they feel safe with. So one of the challenges we've had here as we introduce a trauma-informed approach is differentiating between what is trauma-related behaviour and what is an unmet need, to make sure we provide the right support. So just a few examples really. So we've got the origin. So the origin of trauma-related behaviour is around their past traumatic experiences, such as abuse, neglect, loss. The unmet needs of the behaviour, they come from the current unmet physical, emotional and psychological needs. So there's a difference between timescales for that one. The triggers, often triggered by reminders of trauma. Within LSU, I think that links back to children being triggered by noise. We are quite a noisy environment. Children often kick the door to get noticed and get their needs met. Isolation, when they're in their room or they are separated from the group for whatever reason, that kind of thing can be quite triggering. Restraint can also be a trigger. So we do physical interventions as a last resort if needed to keep everyone safe. Obviously that can also trigger past trauma. Whereas the unmet need might be more linked to the current things like they're hungry, they're bored, they need some kind of attachment seeking behaviour that we need to respond to. Boredom can be quite a challenge in a place like this because we have limited resources and space, so it can be repetitive, and the higher the risk, probably the less they can engage with as well. So we are quite aware of that kind of presentation. So for trauma-related behaviour, the presentation may seem disproportionate or unrelated to what's going on in the moment, whereas the unmet needs behaviour is more directly linked to specific identifiable need. So looking at the need behind the behaviour there. The emotional tone is often linked to fear, shame, being hypervigilant, which links back to our children's ACEs. If they can be hypervigilant through past experiences and link back to the noise and the tensions in the home if people aren't getting on, it can be quite a tense atmosphere sometimes. Whereas the unmet needs might be more frustration, seeking that attachment, feeling sad. That's when we might see them refusing to move off corridors so that we don't forget about them. If they're in the middle, where everybody can see them, holding everyone up, they're not going to be forgotten about. So that's more of the unmet needs in the moment as well. So how do we respond? How do they respond to the support? So they may resist the help or push others away due to that lack of trust. Are we going to pass the test? Are we going to be that person that they can rely on and be predictable and consistent and keep them safe? And they're more likely to respond positively once the needs are met, which is what we find.
So, So on that, we've talked about the building trust and positive relationships with the children, and that is our key focus. We spend a lot of time training staff, looking at how they can build those positive relationships and supporting them to do them in a safe way. And staff spend the time engaging with the children, listening to their concerns and providing consistent support. The relationship approach is fundamental to helping children feeling valued and understood. And since we've had this as our focus, we can see that that has a real impact on how quickly the children settle and how quickly we can move up that trauma recovery model as well. So if we think about that, within Lincolnshire, we have what we call My Story meetings, and these are multi-agency meetings, and we meet to discuss every child, and they're all discussed within a month period. And within that, we will have our health team, our care team, our education team, the case team, managers, anybody that has got some information about that child, and we come together and we create one document that everybody can work towards. And we bring everything together. Like Debbie said, there's pieces sometimes all over the place. And this helps us to do, this way of working helps us to create a one plan document so everybody understands that child, and any information a staff member might have, they'll bring a way of might worked for them. So if a child is distressed, we always ask in those meetings, what worked well, what happened in this incident, could we have done something differently, is there any learning from that? So those meetings are really important, and they're crucial for supporting children with complex needs and those with, posing a risk to others as well, and bringing all those different people together. And using the trauma recovery model within the process helps us measure progress and know when to put in the right interventions at the right time, like I talked about with that triangle. When we go into our meetings, everybody has a copy of that trauma recovery model in front of them. We start the meeting with where we felt the child was last time we met, and then we see what progress we've made. Have we made any? Have we managed to move them up a little? What else can we do to get them to that next layer? What else can we do as a team that will get them ready to do some meaningful intervention? Because actually the whole point of that is to make sure we make a difference for when they leave us. So we do use that as one of our measures. And we can also use that then within our other professional meetings to demonstrate progress, how much the child has developed through that stages. With our Ofsted, we've used it within that to show, this is what we use, this is where we're trying to get this child to get to, and all that sort of helps. We have individual support plans which are also attached to that at times, because obviously our children are they've already suffered lots of ACEs, but there's still many more that they're overcoming while they're in custody. So they might be going through a trial. We've had children who've suffered a family bereavement and they're here with us. And what are we going to do to support that child at those points? What are we going to do if there's, an increase in self-harm due to, family situations? Sometimes they fall out. Sometimes there's lots of complex around the whole family. And sometimes we see this when a child is ready to leave because they get really dysregulated, and sometimes we really not for the want of trying, but we sometimes don't have a clear address or plan for that child. If they're looked after, it's, you know, quite a short time scale when we can able to do that in. So these creating the individual care plans during the crisis is essential for ensuring that the children receive the right support at the right time. And the plans are tailored to the child's unique needs and circumstances, especially when they experience emotional behaviour or environmental crisis. We put them in for a period of time. We do review them on a regular basis, but they're reviewed with the child. Do you think that plan still needs to be in? What is it's going to help you? We don't write the plan separate. The plan is, you know, with the child. What do they think is going to help? What support do they need? And generally the things that we can achieve, you know, extra phone calls, they might want a DVD on, like when they go to their room to settle them, they might want extra key working, they might want some time out of education when they're really struggling. So these are the sort of things that we put in place for them. And through these processes, what we're trying to achieve through the My Story meetings is those building blocks to get them to where they need to be. So those 2 levels before we get to that more in-depth offence work, so they can focus on some of the key reasons why they might have ended up in this situation. So the impact on the children, what we've seen since we implemented it, I feel like we have embedded it now. It's not been easy. There's, you know, different reasons why people sometimes manage a situation, but they've not looked at the whole picture, and that's mainly time or whatever it may be. But we do feel that we've reduced incidents since that we've implemented this way of working, and that behaviour stabilisation and improvement, reducing incidents, aggression, self-harm and other risky behaviours has an impact on the children. So if the unit is calm, all the children, generally what happens then is the children that come in that are dysregulated can quickly calm because they see all the other children that are calm. There's a sense of safety is crucial for their emotional and physical well-being. Consistent and empathic interactions with the staff that build trust, where they are better placed to engage in the support available. Children feel stable and secure and able to engage in therapeutic interventions. They reduce the likelihood of reoffending as children receive the support they need to move forward and develop healthier coping mechanisms. And they've got improved life prospects. Children are better equipped to succeed in the future endeavours in education or personal relationships. And we see that, like now, we might see our children say to us, I don't think the staff used a trauma-informed approach there, which is really interesting to hear them say it, because actually they've noticed when people maybe don't come with the approach that they feel is trauma-informed. And that's an interesting one, because then we can have those conversations more with the children around what we're all trying to achieve, and why things sometimes may be different to what they see. But it does have a real impact on the children. And I think we can clearly see it. The children voice they feel safe here. Our last Ofsted inspection clearly praised the trauma-informed work that we were implementing. And, you know, it's an ongoing process. I'm not saying we're where we need to be. There's always ongoing work with it, because actually, you know, our staff team change sometimes, so then we've got to train new people up, but again, the staff that now come in, the other staff tell them this is the way we work. So I think we've got to a point where it's an everyday conversation. It's not just something we might do occasionally. It's definitely an everyday conversation. So if we think about redeemability, we come from a belief that every child, no matter how challenging their behaviour or how severe their trauma, has the potential to recover and lead a positive, fulfilling life. We don't say, oh, we're never going to get anywhere with that child, we're never going to change them. We always come from a belief that we can change them. We can, even if that's a small change. And we'll go on about little changes and little small wins, we call them, as we go through. But we always come from this belief. The concept emphasises that with the right support, understanding and intervention, children can overcome their past experiences and build a better future. And we do have some clear examples of that. And that building trust in relationships and providing that consistent support are crucial for helping children recover. the focus is on helping the children develop the skills and resilience they need to lead positive and successful lives. By believing in them, staff can approach their work with hope and commitment, knowing that their efforts can make a significant difference in the lives of the children they support. And it's lovely when we get, children will call us years after they've left and will say, you did make a difference. And when the staff, we always share those good news stories with the staff team, because some days it's difficult in here, it can be really challenging, but those little stories of hope, and we've had more of them recently, and I do think it's linked to the way that we're working, makes the staff feel like actually it's worthwhile. It might be tough, but actually we are making a difference, and that's why we come to work every day.
So we talked a little bit about consistency and predictability, and the really important part of our unit is our routine. It's structured from the minute they get up to the minute they go to bed. Bedtime is the same time, depending on what level they've reached. So they know where they stand and they know what's going on. And that is our first part of creating that sense of safety. We try to avoid unnecessary changes in staffing or the environment. They struggle to cope with the change, which can be linked to being re-traumatizing. We as staff need to be reliable in our responses, just to reduce their anxiety and their hypervigilance. An example that I heard outside of here, really, but it was more of a community-based example, was there was a young person who was meant to meet with their worker, and they went to meet them. They went for about 3-4 weeks of being there at the same time, 3:30 every Friday. They were there. The child never turned up. And I think on day 5 or 6, the child then did turn up and said to the worker, "You don't give up, do you? I've watched you every week come and sit there for the hour." So it's just knowing that predictability and that persistence and that consistency, and they are valued, helps to support their engagement. And that was quite a eye-opening example, really, that how they test us out and how we need to pass those tests. Had that worker gone after 5 minutes, not turned up the next week, we probably just would have been put in the same category as just like everyone else, don't really care. But that was a really telling example for me. We can't do that here because we're here all the time, but we try and take that ethos through to where we are. So we've talked a lot about our multi-agency planning. So we have quite a wide team here of therapists internally. We have occupational therapists, we have mental health nurse, physical health nurse, psychology, the big one. We have education, we have intervention, we have case management, we have key working, we have the care staff. So there's a lot of people that need to work together internally whilst working with the external professionals and their agendas and pressures and demands outside with social workers and yacht workers. So working as one really is quite important. So we're not giving mixed messages. We're not repeating work that's been done already. We're sowing the seeds for the future work for when they leave. It all should already flow quite nicely to meet the individual needs of the child. And as we talked about on the purple area of the triangle, we need to recognise that challenging behaviours may indicate progress. It's not always about going backwards and regressing. When they get to the point of being able to explore their trauma, that's going to be difficult for them. And we will see a little bit more of challenging behaviours that just needs to be understood and supported. So attunement is a big part of what we do, links largely to the relationships with the children. It's our ability to be in sync with the emotional and psychological state of the children at the time, being aware and responsive to their needs, feelings and behaviours in a way that makes them feel understood and supported. That links back to understanding the need behind the behaviour. What's going on emotionally for them? Recognising and understanding their emotions and needs. So, for example, we've got a young man at the moment who He's coming towards the end of his sentence, making plans for release on temporary licence, working towards his early release. Yet he's got the stress of knowing that he's also got outstanding court dates that might make him be here longer. So it's understanding that impact on him when he's having a bit of a stressful moment. Being responsive in our support, providing appropriate and timely support based on the child's current state. So we have a young lady who is very loud. She can be very in your face, shouting at you regularly, but she's worked it now that she can take herself away, and using silence can be really big for her. And it's knowing that and doing that at the right time. But it's successful for her. So we've learned that, to be responsive and when to engage in that conversation and when actually to take a step back and give it some time. So building connection, creating a sense of connection and understanding between staff and children. Sometimes it could just be picking up on the vibes in the room, giving the child a knowing look because you know them well enough and know that they just need to take some time out, or they need a bit of support, or they're not the same as they usually are today. They're quieter or they're louder. We need to change the way we support and work with them. So that does help us. So the achievement helps build trust and fosters a supportive environment where children feel safe and valued. So they don't have the same relationship with every staff member. Some children have better ones with others and not so much with other ones, yet other ones will prefer different ones, and it all kind of works quite well. So everybody, I would say all children have someone, at least 1, 2, 3, 4 that they can turn to when they're struggling and are in tune with what's going on for them. And then it's important for them then to share that information out. So we have got a case example of a child who was with us for 3 years. He arrived to us when he was 14 for a Section 18 offence, wounding with intent, and received a 7-year custodial sentence. He was originally from Moldova. He had experienced childhood trauma, some of which was back in Moldova, numerous ACEs. He left us at the age of 17 after being successful at his parole hearing and was released from custody and returned home. So how did we get there? How did we get to that point of him being able to return home and make progress? Next slide, please. So at the beginning, A arrived scared and petrified. They were the words he used. He was very over reliant on his peers, described as a sheep who followed the crowd. He experienced quite a lot of chaos because he pleaded not guilty to his offences and appealed and had 2 trials, really struggled to take responsibility for his own actions, and did demonstrate the fight, flight or freeze responses quite a lot. So what did we do first? We created that safe, structured environment. Our presence was consistent. Our boundaries were clear. What we expected of him was clear. And those daily interactions that we had with him just worked on building that trust to start with. So then we moved up to level 2, stabilisation and safety. So how did we know he was making progress? So we started to develop trusting relationships with staff and peers. We saw a reduction in his reactive behaviours. He was able to communicate and articulate his needs a lot better. The conversations and discussions with staff were more meaningful. Tell us how he was feeling, then we can put in the support that he needs. He engaged well in education. He engaged well in his enrichment activities. Took an interest in the gym, took an interest in the workshop. A recognition of important relationships and his desire to repair them after conflict. So we do use a restorative approach as well. So that helped him. We all have bad days. We all get angry. It's how we repair from that and move forward positively. So the supportive strategies we implemented for him was role modelling, his key working, being flexible in his education. So what is he interested in? What can we build on? Questioning him to promote his accountability. We want him to start taking responsibility for his own actions. And it's doing that in your everyday practice. It's not an intervention session that needs to happen separately. That's what we do in general, day-to-day life on the unit, and just create that safe space and opportunities for him to grow and keep pushing on. That took us to level 3, recovery and resilience. So he started to self-regulate. He was described as empathic, resilient, self-confident and independent. He had a motivation and a future focus. So building on his education ambitions, he was doing work experience in a local garage. He was following that through in school and in his key work, and it was a big part of his everyday focus. There was a moment where something had happened and he sat there and he said, yeah, I did that, take responsibility for that. And just that one sentence was a big indicator that actually we are starting to progress now. And he got better and better at that as time went on. His self-esteem improved, his sense of humour was very prominent in his interactions with everybody. He achieved qualifications and he secured a college placement. So how did we kind of do that? So we had the anchor points for him. So Sarah talked about Leaders Unlocked earlier. He was part of that. He was a mentor through that for other people, presented at conferences, all that kind of thing. He was a regular at the gym, consistent education. He had career aspirations and he had his work experience. And there was key people that played parts in that supported him all the way through. Each person probably played a slightly different role to build that big picture for him. And we gave him praise and recognition for his accomplishments because he was progressing really well. So we move on to stage 4, his growth. So he did demonstrate self-regulation, resilience and motivation. He went through the parole process, which was a challenging time. He self-regulated, he kept himself together, kept his focus and was successful. He developed positive relationships with staff, with his self-confidence, and he had a future focus. I think when he first arrived, he didn't even know who he was really. And he's kind of now knows more about himself and what he wants to be and where he wants to go. He was described as assertive, independent, and able to reflect on his actions. He's achieved educational qualifications and engaging in work experience and career planning. So he went to his work experience. That's been done before with other children. He left and went to work in the local garage 2 days a week. We even then progressed to, for the first time ever, that he went and took himself there. So we biked to the local garage, got himself back on time, had a little phone if he needed help, and that worked really well. And that set him up for the future, really. To be able to do that, he was a proper worker at the garage, not just a work experience boy. So getting to the top, which is unusual for us. I don't think we're not quite at the top, but we don't really get quite high up in the triangle. But this is a good example of someone who does, probably because he was here for a long time. So he delivered public speaking at a national conference with confidence and emotional honesty, showing his leadership and emotional maturity. And that is something he continues to do today. He's been left nearly a year and he's still doing that. He's professional. He's got empathy for others. He expressed gratitude and how he reflects on his experiences and really wants to make a change to others so they don't go down the same path as him. Described by professionals as a role model. He secured the paid internship with Leaders Unlocked to prepare for life beyond us, which he has. And there's some real good examples of his success with that. He had clear goals, what he wanted to do. He also wants to come back to us at some point and give a talk to our children to share his experiences. So he went from really thinking he was worthless, no self-worth, and his words, he has too much to lose in life now. I think if we went back to his early days, we wouldn't have expected the success that we had from him. It took a long time. And that's a real good example of what we're here for.
So just from that, the key points in practice delivery is the psychological needs underpin the behaviours and identify developmental appropriate interventions that best address those needs. We talked a lot about that and when it's best to do those interventions. Again, people think, oh, they're in custody, they need to do this, that and the other. And actually, a lot of the time, we are working through possibly not the direct offence, the things that led them there. So they're identifying them, but also thinking about their developmental age. It's a formulation-led practice. We use connection before correction. So again, that talks a lot about the connection is that relationship building. There's no point me going to somebody I hardly know and then trying to get them to do something that I want them to do without having that connection. Once we have that connection, we can change those behaviours much easier. We recognise and value the small wins. So like Debbie said, we don't always get to the top of that triangle. That was a really good case study. Sometimes we get a child to clean the room, and you know what? We're happy with that because that child has lived in chaos and we've tried to get them to clean their room for 3 months. But if that child takes themselves away and cleans the room themselves, that is a win to us. That is working with the child and getting them to do those small steps that might get them to move up that triangle more. And value every interaction as meaningful and move away from it's not just a chat, it's not just a one-to-one session. We always used to use that terminology, but actually that's not right, because if I'm sat on a corridor with a child that's dysregulated and we're having a conversation and I get them to, calm, re-engage into the routines of the day, spend some time just chatting, that's not just nothing. That is something that then next time that child can recognise, we did this last time and that worked better. And also we've talked a lot about the need behind the behaviour. It's just recognising that. So the next slide is just to demonstrate, it's a lovely slide this, about every moment and every interaction can be an intervention. And sometimes people focus on the word intervention. It's got to be a program that we're following. It's got to be this, it's got to be that. They've got to do some work on anger management. Actually, it's just those moments like I've talked about. It's just that seed planting. It's just that, when children are helped to do something, they can then learn to do it themselves. And all of these are just quite nice little antidotes on there. And I always like the sparkle or a light bulb one, because sometimes we have a light bulb moment from a child. And I remember sitting with a child and we'd done every program around sexual exploitation. She couldn't see what it was we were doing. She didn't think for one moment that was the situation she was in until we had a drama group come in, and I sat next to her and she watched the drama group. She turned to me and she said, "That's what you've been talking about. That's me, isn't it? That's what's happening." And it's those light bulb moments that then we think, it's like, goodness, she's recognized that, and they're really important. And the impact on us as a home, it helps our staff understand how trauma affects behaviour and development, and the understanding allows for more empathic and effective interventions. This model provides a structured approach to addressing trauma, ensuring that we sequence those interventions like we've talked about. By focusing on the root cause of behaviour and providing that tailored support, the trauma recovery model can lead to better outcomes in terms of emotional stability, behaviour management and overall well-being. And again, it encouraged collaboration between various agencies, ensuring we have that holistic approach. Like Debbie said, there's lots of staff that work here. We all work in different departments. What we do good at is we get together and we all put our ideas and what can we do in times of crisis to help this child and what can we do differently. And everybody then has a piece of that, and we can share those ideas and what might help us work better for that child. And overall, the day-to-day running of the home is focused on creating a stable and supportive and trauma-informed environment. And that's what we're aiming to do through this process.
But just to finish this, this approach not only helps managing the immediate behaviours, but also lays the groundwork for long-term recovery and positive development. So we have no limits to what our children can achieve. We keep aiming beyond and beyond we don't get to the end. We are infinite, I think is the word, and recognise that not one size fits all. And just to add that we are expanding, so we will have a new build in a couple of years. So to put that out there while we've got the opportunity.
A shameless plug for staffing, Debbie. Brilliant. I just want to say before we kind of go on to questions from the group, thank you so much for sharing. Obviously, I know we've got a range of professionals on the call, and we wanted Lincolnshire Secure Unit to come and share because obviously they work in this way. But I think a lot of the information and the points that they've shared are things that we can all kind of take on board working with children. So I know obviously they're kind of working at a point where children may have already experienced trauma. But like Sarah said, it's kind of going through that at the moment, and it's thinking about kind of what point they are on the trauma recovery model. We have Lincolnshire Safeguarding Children Partnership have just recently released a e-learning module on kind of the understanding trauma, and that has much more information about the trauma recovery model and kind of applying some of those things into our day-to-day practice. So I'll just encourage you to go away if you've not already done that and have a quick look through it. But yeah, I suppose at this point, just want to say massive thank you, Sarah and Debbie. Has anyone got any questions or anything they'd like to raise? Happy to use the chat, or please do feel free to pop up your hand and I can facilitate that. Sarah or Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a Sarah. Hello. Oh, wrong screen.
It's
Hang
all
on,
right.
get down there. That was fascinating. I'm an OT in acute, so this is a world apart from where I work at the moment, but fascinating. I'm just thinking from an OT perspective, you know, what you've done is you've created such a secure environment and a consistent environment around the child, and then they're going to be discharged or whatever, moved on, however you call it, from your unit. How do you prepare them for that? Because that next environment may not have and mirror all of the things that you've offered. And so how do you prepare them to have that resilience to be able to see and operate in that other world?
Yeah, we're fortunate enough to have a resettlement practitioner within our health team, and their role is to support the child within custody but also on release. So they do a lot of the work that you're talking about. Also, we do release on temporary license. So the boy that went out to the garage, there's lots of barriers to overcome to get children on release on temporary license, but our ethos is that they go when we overcome whatever barrier that is. And again, that's preparing them because they're going out in the community. So we've got one of our children currently working in one of our community larders. We've got other children that have been out to schools and do presentations. So all these things are preparing them for going out into the community. But our resettlement officer is key to that ongoing support when they are in the community. And we do sometimes do some more clear exit plans, depending on where the child's going, around having less interactions or one-to-ones with staff. If they're moving on to the adult prison, we'll do a lot of work around that, because obviously that's not, unfortunately, what they're going to be offered there. So we do some preparation around that, depending on the child and where they're going to be moving on to, really.
Thank you. And my other quick question was, you know, the slide that you had about the MDT, you know, and who gets together on a monthly basis. Does family or siblings, do they get involved with that, or is that a pure professional thing?
It's a professional thing, because what that does is that meeting and those documentations goes into the child's review meetings where the family would be. So the family do feed into that, albeit through a different process. And we have invited families to meetings where when a child is leaving, we'll do like reflective meetings about the child and what they think they've learnt. And we've invited families to them as well, which has been really successful. So
thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. There is another question in the chat that just says, do you know the statistics for how many of your children have special educational needs development?
I have a board in my office, and all of the children have some sort of special educational needs, and I would say that 50% have a educational healthcare plan, and the others might have emotional, regulational needs as well. Some of the SEN might be that English isn't their first language either as well. So I would say all of our children, but to different degrees, and a lot of them missed out on a lot of education prior to coming here.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And I suppose this one kind of links a little bit back to what Sarah was saying, but Kim's asked, do you include any parents and family in the work with the children to restore potentially challenging relationships? So is there anything else that you maybe do with families?
Yeah, our team, which is the case management team, do a lot of work with families, because you generally we're the point of call when a child comes into custody, and families and parents can be really upset, distraught. But also we do some family work through our resettlement officer. She does the family work, and that enables her then, as well as supporting the child on release, to continue to support the family. So it's generally through the resettlement role that carries on. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the time we supervise visits as well, so we might be trying to help families regulate. We had one example where I remember the parent visiting the girl, and the first time we had to basically separate them, and we didn't think we were going to get anywhere with this, with them moving on with their relationship. But through perseverance and the parent mum feeling safe to come and visit, and then we would support her, eventually that child did go home. So it never used to be as formalized as family work, but we do a lot of work towards it. That makes sense.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And I just think it's another example of that trauma recovery model, because once that parent felt safe, they were able to engage a little bit more. So it is something that we encourage kind of staff to use and look at, not only with the children, young people they're working with, but also with the parents. You know, it's likely that a number of parents that we're working with probably have experienced trauma as well. So that's really brilliant. And I think all the other comments are really just to say it's been really interesting, informative. Thank you very much. Really relevant. We've had someone here who works with children in an alternative provision, and they've been working really hard. So I get they'll probably take a lot away from maybe utilising that model. So thank you both very, very much. The only final thing that I'll say is Mandy has posted a link to a feedback form in the chat. Please do take some time to go away and fill that out for us. Debbie and Sarah will share that with you as well. But if there's nothing else, everyone's free to go. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.